All right. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And we're going to go through today. Can you see anything? There you go. You can hear now, right? Okay, good. There's a delay. Yeah, that's very typical. All right. Well, good morning. Thank you for being here. And today we're going to be discussing about confidence and how it'll make a difference in your way of doing business. So my name is Mark Cabrera, and I've been in the business for 30 years. I've been with Remax, actually. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys know. I've been a broker of a Remax franchise, and I've sold over 1,000 houses, as well as been in the top 20 for the region for Mid-Atlantic. Well, anyway, so enough of that said. I would love to talk to you about how you could gain confidence through a lot of different means. We're going to be discussing certain things. One of the things that we're going to discuss is what is the definition of confidence and what is it exactly? How do we know when we have that? Sometimes we feel that confidence is just the way we are, but it's everything from the way you present yourself, the way you move, the way you make eye contact, the way you shake somebody's hand, the way you project your voice in the right place at the right time. So you're not feeling awkward about things, knowing your environment. All these things are actually makes a play in terms of how you would define someone, whether the person is confident or not. So this is really a very important facet of the things that we get to do in gaining that confidence. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about um, in which circumstance do you need confidence. There's going to be little areas where your business that before you come into a listing appointment, not only you need to know the area, you need to know all the houses that sold in the area. You need to have an idea what they look like. So really dig into the pictures because your client can grill you on that. And the minute that you actually hesitate on something, then it's going to be a lot tougher to actually win them over. So this is one of the things that we're going to discuss. And why do we need confidence in real estate? Well, people buy people in this sense because if a client wants to buy a house nowadays, they can go out on their own. So our job is to get in between that process and guide them through the process and making sure that they are safe, they are protected, they know the direction they need to go, they have directions. Well, if you ever met somebody that tries to give you directions into a particular place, but then they're not confident. And when I say they're not confident, they're not sure about how to go about being able to get there. And they give you instructions that are not 100% like the way they express it, right? You start to create a doubt. And then at that point, you would actually say, okay, should I listen or should I get another opinion? Well, in our field, the other opinion, the other opinion could be a matter of you getting the listing or the opinion person gets the listing. So you don't want that opportunity to occur. So that's one part of it, right? So this is like a very important aspect of it because if a person knows that you can get the job done and they don't have a single doubt because you're able to express it in such a way, then more than likely you're going to get that listing. Some people tell me, oh, the last person that interview gets the listing. No, the most confident person who can get the job done gets the listing. It's not the first person, it's not the last person, it's the most impressive person. And if you notice, the most impressive people that influence you in your career or in your life, they're very confident on the areas that they know very well. And a lot of times they know more than you. And that's the reason why you pay attention and listen to begin with. The only reason why you wouldn't listen to somebody is because that person is saying something that you know for a fact is not true, or is saying something that you know for a fact that only benefits that person, not necessarily you. So these are the times when you don't listen to that person. But when in doing the preparation, this is actually part of the confidence building process. So anytime you go out there and actually meet buyers or potential sellers or potential people that would actually want to go a particular direction, with, for you to actually win them over, it requires for you to know, have done some homework into the process. And if you're new in the business, and this is what I was actually very good at, actually, when I first started, I was new in the business. I promoted the one that's been in the business for 20 years. Why? Because I'm going to be competing with some of the people out there that's been in business for 20 years. And me edifying another person, it doesn't really matter. To me, money is green. I mean, if I'm able to actually get them to go with the person that, like my mentor, let's say, to actually buy a home, I'm making income. So I'm okay with that, You don't necessarily have to take all the credit, but the way I express myself and how confident I am this person can deliver can be very convincing, right? So not necessarily you need to know all the information, but you also need to have resources around you to actually kind of build around that confidence. So those are the kind of things we're going to talk about. What are key elements to acquire confidence? This is also another thing that we're going to discuss, because there's also another part that talks about where do we get our confidence naturally and where do we lose confidence through our lives. And it's very important for you to be aware of that, because if you stay with the people that actually builds you down, then you're not going to build your confidence up. It's just a natural thing. But you need to be able to identify those people. As much as you love certain people in your life, I promise you, you want to minimize the encounter, per se, with certain people, because you don't want your life to be pulled down. You don't want your emotions to be pulled down, because part of your confidence is also part of your happiness. Remember one thing: when people are buying a house or people are trying to sell a house, when the way you're going to get in between those transactions where you negotiate the transaction is for them to feel that you're a whole person, whole as in emotionally whole person. I mean, have you ever seen a person that's actually depressed and try to do business with them? It doesn't work very well. And the reason why is the confidence is not there for you to actually rely on that person to come through, even though they're competent, but their attitude is just not right. So that's part of the whole encompassing of confidence. It's also the idea of looking at it from the underlying factors, which is your feelings and emotions. So when you're in control of your feelings, you're in control of your emotions, and when you go into a situation, no matter how bad it gets, when it's showtime, it's showtime. And when I say when it's showtime, I always think about it. When I actually about to go into a room, I think in the back of my head, it's showtime. Let me go ahead, put my best suit forward. Let me actually get excited about it. Let me get pumped up about seeing people and being able to actually, because all that stuff is very contagious. And also it exudes confidence when you're excited about what you talk about. So yes. So confidence is let me define this in such a way that everybody is more like in a layman term. Confidence is the way you deliver your message. It's basically boils down to everything from all the aspects of we just talked about. It's the way you deliver the message. When you deliver the message, confidence is the part that's the intangible that allows a person to be convinced or to be impressed by what you're presenting, that they would want to do business with you. So it makes a big difference when you're looking at it from, let's say a listing appointment or even a home buyer's appointment. So you have a buyer that's actually sitting in front of you. All these people have choices. You're not the only one that they can choose from. I mean, they have a lot of options that they could actually explore in terms of working with certain people. So especially nowadays the competition is very stiff. I promise you, going into the next year, it's going to be much easier for those who believe in themselves. See, when we find excuses why certain things a certain way, then it becomes that certain thing and that certain way. Does that make sense? Your vision takes you to your direction. So if you yourself are looking at this outlook of next year being, oh, it's going to be horrible, then guess what? It's going to be horrible. And 80% of the population right now is actually already anticipating that, right? For me, there's a saying, when there is chaos, there's opportunities. See, when everything flows well, everybody actually, the ones that are supposed to be doing well are doing well. But when everything's going south or going bad, right? Only the strongest, most resilient people, the ones that are actually determined to win, are going to be in the business. And at that point, your competition got cut almost 50% or even 60%. Even though the pie might be smaller, there are less people sharing the pie. This is the way I look at it. When the market is great, there's a huge amount of pie, right? But you can only fit so much in your stomach. So it doesn't do you any much better. So on the bottom of the market in 2008, I came into the top 20 for the whole region for Remax, right? That was crashing market. On 2005, on the peak of the market, I came into the top 20 of the whole region. What happened to 2006 and 7? Guess what? The numbers that I did was consistent. But since the pie was bigger, I was a small percentage of that pie. But guess what? I'm eating the same amount of pie the whole time, filling my stomach, right? So to me, I'm perfectly happy whether I have to work in 2005 or work in 2008. It's the same market for me. Why? This is the difference, guys. If you're making 20 phone calls and getting 1 closed transactions in 2005, in 2008, you're just going to need to make 80 phone calls to close 1 transaction. That's the only difference. What's so difficult about that? Guess what? You have more time anyway, because you probably have less clients to begin with. That's why you're making the phone calls. So you'll end up with the same numbers that are actually successful numbers, not only for you to live, but for you to thrive. We're not here to survive while you're in the real estate business. Have you ever met anyone saying to you like, hey, I'm going to the real estate business so I can be mediocre or I can fail. That's why I'm getting into this real estate business, right? Nobody says these things. And the reason why is we are geared towards what we want to do. Why are we working for someone else? We're working for someone else because we have a false sense of security. Hear me out. False sense of security. You think you're secure, but the minute that the budget gets cut at the school, you could get laid off. The minute that that business goes down, they don't get enough business, you get cut off. Do you think the owner gets cut off? No, they're the last one to get cut off, right? They're the last one outstanding. Well, guess what? You are in this business. You are your own owner. You are your own destiny. This is one thing you got to understand. Own it. Own this destiny. Be confident about actually going into this business, knowing the fact that you're going to own it next year. You know the difference between Michael Jordan and the rest of the basketball players out there? All of them can dribble. All of them can shoot. All of them can dunk. Does everybody agree here? Right? The biggest difference between Michael Jordan and the rest of those players, when you watch one of his interviews, one of the interviews I actually saw, he goes into that court thinking that he's going to dominate that person. I'm going to score this amount of points this quarter. I'm going to actually make sure this game is won. I mean, he already has the inclination in his head before he even walks into the court that he's the best player out of everybody in that place. And guess what? That's in his head. Everybody can do the same as he does, but guess what? Not everybody thinks as he does. So what's the difference between you and somebody who's doing 100 transactions? You know what it is? It's been between our ears. The way we think, the way we behave, the way we develop, the way we show up to these kind of events for us to learn and for us to grow. These are the most important parts of your career that makes a big difference. It's you being present. The biggest problem a lot of agents have out there is they complain rather than they show up. If you show up more, then you will learn more and you will do more. And that's really a natural phenomenon. It's not like rocket science, right? But if you don't participate and you don't show up to these areas where you can develop, then that's how far you're going to go. There's limitations to the abilities that you're going to have based on the way you think and the way you participate. Have you ever seen a championship like team, the one that wins the championships, and they don't practice? No. Some actually, even the coaches, even if you're the best player in the team, they have a rule. If you don't show up on practice, you don't get to play. Some of these coaches do it this way. Why? Because in participating into the grind, we do have the grind in this business, believe it or not. If every single day passes by and you never talk to a single person, you are in the wrong business. I'm sorry to say, okay? Every single day that passes by, you need to encounter people. And guess what? You come in here not to sell houses. You come in here to be part of the process in the house selling and buying. Okay? All these people nowadays with the technology, they can do without us. But why do they need us? Well, one of the reasons why is they might not be confident about negotiating their own transaction. You know, the toughest transactions to negotiate is your own, because you have a vested interest to succeed, and your interest doesn't lie on anything but the whole idea that you get the most. What do you think the other side is thinking? They're thinking the same. They're thinking like, oh, I want the most. Okay, you want the most, I want the most. How are we going to agree on these things? Because you're going to end up with less, and I'm going to end up with less. Now, if you have someone in between that process, who does that person represent? Does that person represent the seller? Does that person represent the buyer? Because whoever that in-between person can actually work their way through negotiating to get the best for the person they're representing. Hence, the birth of buyer agency. That's why the buyer agency came around. Because some buyers will say, hey, sellers are represented, and then you have these sub-agents showing me houses. Why can't I be represented? And then that complaint came around, and then 25 years later, or 30 years later, it came around the other way. So, I mean, like, hey, I'm paying for that person's representation. Why am I paying for that person's representation? They should be paying for the representation. So that came around that way. Now, I don't know what direction. To me, it doesn't matter. If you have confidence of saying the fact that you need to get paid, guess what? You will get paid. Okay? That's all I'm going to tell you. Like, I have a buyer that's actually looking to buy a for sale by owner. You know, we're looking at houses and everything. It's like, how about this for sale by owner? It's like, great. That's perfect. But keep in mind that you're paying me the commission. And if I'm able to negotiate something with the seller, even better, then I can give you a discounted payment of a commission. You're still paying me a commission. Now, if I'm able to get everything from the seller, great. I'll actually discount it to 100%. That's fine, because someone else is paying that, but someone's gonna pay me. That's how it works, because I need to be representing you. Point I'm trying to make to you is, for you to be able to explain all that, you have to have confidence in you, knowing the fact that you will deliver the goods. You will deliver the value. See, it's one thing to say something, is another thing to act on those things and deliver. Why do you need to deliver? Because the next person, that person's going to refer to you, they're going to put their name on it. So if they refer their cousin, their uncle, their mom, their sister, or their brother, or whatever, right? Their name is on the line. Their name is on the hook. So it depends on how you did with them, whether or not they want to put their name on you. And you know, that's like 10 times more powerful than just getting one client. See, some people fish for one fish. But have you seen the big net those commercial fishers actually put out there? They catch a lot more, right? That's essentially what the difference is when you're actually dealing with one person and that person is confident that you can actually get the job done, right? And the way you actually present yourself and the way you execute these things, the way you deliver the message when it's good or even when it's bad. See, that's another thing I want to tell you. When things go wrong, you need to communicate more. When things go wrong, that's when you communicate the most. When things are great, you communicate the good things. But when things go wrong, you should be communicating twice as much. Why? Because anytime a person is getting anxiety is because you haven't delivered a message that's necessary for that person to receive, for that anxiety to go down. Anxiety is caused by uncertainty, and uncertainty actually causes confidence or lack of confidence in you. So if you want to exude confidence, you need to actually show certainty for that certain person, something that you can deliver. It's something deliverable. Because if all you do is talk and you cannot deliver, that person will not have confidence in you, and you're not exuding the confidence that's necessary. So not only you're trying to develop, see, some people think confidence is about just your inner being able to actually, kind of deliver the message. But also, you got to understand, whatever message you're delivering out there comes with some actions that you need to take in order for that person to feel confident about you. The worst compliment I will ever have in my business is when a person tells me, you're a good salesperson. Because when a person tells me you're a good salesperson, it means I didn't do a good job enough. The reason why that person is saying I'm a good salesperson is because I'm selling, I'm pitching, but I'm not necessarily delivering. That's the reason why a person would say, hey, you're a good salesperson, because they don't believe in you. I mean, it may be sincere, but I'm telling you right now, this is the way I'm actually looking at it. It's like, okay, so the message that catches my ear, I need to do a better job. I need to do a better job actually gaining this person's confidence from working with me. So this is basically where we are on that part. When does confidence become like boasting or cockiness, right? The one thing I can tell you, if you want to promote you, the easiest way to do it is to have it come out of somebody else's mouth. How many times have you gotten a referral from someone and your trust and confidence with that person's abilities are actually on a high? Why? Because the person just transferred that person's trust coming from a person that you trust. That's borrowing somebody's trust and confidence in that sense, right? So that's very important as well. You need to learn the art, and it is an art, of having people promote you. And guess what? Why would people do that? That's another question you have to ask yourself. Why would anyone want to promote you? Well, let me tell you why. It's very simple. Someone would want to promote you if, number one, they owe you something. Remember, owing doesn't necessarily monetarily. It's also emotionally. People miss this biggest part of owing somebody. Have you ever felt, I mean, most of us have parents. Have you ever felt that even though our parents are the way they are, at some point when we mature, we tend to forgive them? We tend to. Some of us never do. or or whatever egregious thing that they've done is maybe unforgivable. I understand. But here's my point. If they provided roof over your head, food on the table, the best education they can possibly give you, the time and energy and effort, the love and caring they've actually provided you, those are emotional deposits. It's similar to the deposits that you could provide to each and every person that you meet out there. It doesn't necessarily be a scenario that you're actually like giving them, emotional deposit about real estate. It could be anything. Like 2 weeks ago, I saw this couple that was actually struggling with their marriage, and I can see, because I've actually gone through that part of the life, and I'm like, okay, I know exactly what's going on. I know exactly how to actually approach this, and I'm not even a psychologist, okay? And they approached the pastor already. They approached some other people. Nobody can actually solve their problem, but I can see exactly what the problem is, so I pointed it out to them. That's called emotional deposit. Does it mean I will withdraw that deposit at some point? Not necessarily. But one day, I'm hoping that same couple will actually, end up mending their relationship and get better, and their relationship could become wonderful, right? And at some point, they're going to buy a house. Guess who they're going to actually go with? More than likely, the person that they feel close and the feel that cares about them. That's called emotional deposit. People will feel confident about you when they know that you're there in their toughest time. That's where you can rely on your friends sometimes. Your friends you can count with your fingers, because when things go bad, man, half of these people just disappear. You don't even know where they are, because they don't even care to actually figure out how you're doing, really. But when things are great, everybody's around you, right? So you have to understand your way of doing business has to come with the idea that every single person that's out there, when you have an opportunity to make a deposit, do it. And why not? It doesn't take much time, I promise you. Sometimes it takes a referral to somebody. Sometimes it just takes for the person to vent, and you're there just listening and just being there to begin with. Talk about not much effort. I mean, you can literally be on the phone just paying attention to what they're saying, and that's it. I mean, to me, the most valuable time that you could ever spend in real estate is being able to serve other people so they will end up serving you. Do every single one of them serve you? Absolutely not. But guess what? It's okay. We are in a business where everything is a funnel. The more you put on top, the more comes out on the bottom. It's not an equal funnel, though. Otherwise, it won't be a funnel, right? That's why it's called a funnel. And if you start thinking this way and help as many people as you can on the top part, the bottom is going to actually benefit. I was talking to one of the people I was coaching in real estate not too long ago, like 2 weeks ago. I called him up. It's like, wow, you're doing very well. He's like done, I think, 22 transactions this year. It's the most that he's ever done. And he's like, you know what, Mark? One person referred me one person, and that person referred me another person. Next thing you know, I'm actually getting all these referrals, and now 22 transactions later, I'm doing very well. But great, because that's exactly how it works. It works that you don't know where and which one who's going to be able to give you a lot of transactions sometimes. I have one friend of mine that's giving me 26 transactions. 26. Literally, like every 3-4 months, calls me up. Hey, I got this one person who will actually buy a house. Hey, and an attorney, a bankruptcy attorney, that actually have given me almost 14 transactions. Right? Because there's a trust and the confidence part that they know that I can get things done. Trust and confidence, in a way, confidence is actually there, and then trust gets gained through your confidence. Or your actions become the source of the confidence in you, because you're able to deliver what you say you're going to do. So it's very important. Now, when does it become a very destructive thing? You've seen people where they come across as very boastful. That's actually false confidence. When somebody has to explain themselves why they're great, right? Start questioning the insecurities that comes along with that, why that person speaks this way. Because they're filling the missing pieces of their personality, and that's why they're actually doing these things. That's why they're saying those kind of things. You know, and in a way, instead of getting angry at them, you got to feel sorry for them because they're going to lose a lot of people around them. Not this overconfidence thing can actually like detract people from you. And that's the reason why you have to be very careful. There's a certain amount of humility that goes along when you actually work with people. You have to come across as somebody humble. So when you're when you're going to a place, and it happens to me a lot, I get a lot of things for free, a lot, very often, because I'm very kind to everybody as much as I can. So when somebody, like I had a waitress who actually was serving me and my wife, were sitting down and serving us and everything, and she didn't get our fork or something like that, or she actually missed like I asked for some refill on the water, never got done. I asked for for something like hot sauce, because I love hot sauce. She wasn't able to deliver because she was so busy, right? Most people complain. You agree? Okay. No, I did the opposite. I said, you must be so busy. I understand. When you get a chance, please, I'll be greatly appreciated if you can help me out here, kind of thing. This is my approach with humility. She came back like 30 minutes later. I'm so sorry. I haven't been able to serve you the best way we could serve you. So I talked to my manager and he said that you don't have to pay the bill. See? That was a free dinner. I mean, they say there's no such thing as free lunch, but this was a free dinner. I mean, the point I'm trying to, and true story, it was happened at a California Pizza Kitchen. I mean, in where we are in our area. But the point I'm trying to make is like, that's how important it is for you to understand that complaining only works when you can see the end result of that particular way of approach, right? But when you see the other way of being understanding, you touch people's hearts, and it makes them feel that they're not only a person that's supposed to be helping you because they're working and they're making income from it, but they're also appreciated as a human being. There's not enough of these things going around, and people don't realize how important it is. People want to do things for you. People want to refer you clients. I mean, you don't have to look for clients if that person feels so good about you, because that person will just keep sending you business because they like you. It makes a big difference in that sense. So attributes of $1 million producer. So this is actually something that I've experienced. For 9 years, I was making about probably between $500,000 and $900,000 every single year for 9 straight years. Okay, it's a lot of stress. It's something that you may or may not want to take on. But the biggest difference is, I think, it's the kind of lifestyle I wanted to live at the time. Well, wisdom teaches you, experience teaches you wisdom, and then you realize what's your priorities are, and then the whole life actually unravels, and then you actually have to put the pieces back together, and then here we are. So that's how life is, right? So why do we need confidence in our real estate career? I'm going to break it down. So the $1 million producers, what do they have? Well, they have a contact built up to begin with. So if you don't have 125 people in your contact list, start working on that, because that's a very important aspect of growing your business. You have to have at least 125 people that you call every 6 weeks. Okay? Not necessarily for real estate. And the reason why is you're trying to build up that relationship so that when the time comes, they know more about you. And you're not calling them for real estate. You're calling them for them. You see the difference? You're calling to actually create and build a relationship with them. So you ask them for how their family is doing. You ask them how their work is doing. You ask them what they've been up to, what they've been doing recreation-wise, right? And then and then you mention to them about whatever message it is. Usually, when I give a message, it's a message of invitation, and I usually have invitations for my friends, for my events, for my personal life. Why? Because it's more human to human contact rather than actually like a business transaction. Does that make sense? If I invited you to my son's birthday party, does that feel personal? And that's what I want to be. I want to be inside your personal circle. Okay? So if you don't feel comfortable about that, then throw two parties. One for the people that you're not close to and the ones that you're very close to. One very intimate, like maybe your immediate family, and one for all your friends. Does that make sense? Because what you want to do is there's like a whole circle pattern. The center of the circle is everybody that would refer business to you. You know them very well. You know their kids' names. You know their family's names. They know you very well. They know your family. You're very tight and very close. And then there's a circle outside of that. And that circle of people are people that know you and you know them, but you don't know much about them. And then there's a third circle outside of that. And those people actually you've never met, but you might have spoken to on the phone. In our business, you know what people love to talk to? The people on the last circle. The ones that they don't know them, they don't know you, they never heard of you, so they hang up on you. I mean, a lot of agents do it this way. To me, the more efficient way of actually working it and the more effective way of actually dealing with people is when you deal with the people that are closest to you, because they already have the trust. They already have their confidence, right? So that's much easier to work with. And then you work your way out. And as you work your way out, your goal is to bring those people in to the middle. Not everybody's going to make it to the center. Why? Because you have to trust them and be confident about them as well, right? So they could actually be in the outer lining, and that's where your most clients are going to be. Sometimes getting too close to a client becomes a problem as well, because they make assumptions, like if you have issues, that kind of stuff, and they know about it. Oh, I don't want to bother you, so they don't buy houses with you. Like, okay, you know what? That's going to help me a lot if you bought a house, for crying out loud. Why are you like, oh, well, you're too busy. You're having some issues with your family. You see? It's a double-edged sword in this middle circle. You go right outside that circle, most of your clients are going to be there. They know enough about you, but they don't know everything about you, right? Makes a big difference. So building your contacts is important. Market efficiency. Now, here's the thing with market efficiency. Market effectively. Whatever marketing you do, work with something that's free and work yourself to the lowest cost to the highest cost, okay? Because some people want to do marketing and they want to start with the most expensive thing. And then they expect all these results to come out, and guess what? You'll be the first one out the door because you're out of business, because you lost so much money in the business. So when you're trying to market effectively, you start with the things that are available to you. Like here at Ameriteam, they give you, literally, being a member of Ameriteam, you got KV Core Access. Have you explored all the KV Core Access? No. KV Core Access has, okay, your Ameriteam, right? KV Core Access has landing pages. You can post it in many different sites. All those things are already available to you, but guess what? Most people are not even aware of it, never researched it, don't know anything about it. And you can actually literally schedule a text message to your clients on a regular basis that's touching base with them in a way that they remember you top of mind. You know how real estate works is very simple. If you're top of their mind and real estate comes up, they'll call you. But if someone else is doing the top of their mind kind of thing, guess what? They'll call them. They might even be closer to you than them, but they're the one who reminded them that they need to buy a house, not you. Here's another thing that most people make mistakes on. When you're actually out there working with your client or making phone calls, the call cannot be about you. I'm so sorry to say. How many times do you get calls and that person's idea is it's all about them? You can't sit there. When you get this kind of calls, what do? You hang up as quickly as possible. Do you want to listen to somebody else's life story just because they want to actually drag you? No. So remember one thing, when you're making phone calls, make it about them, that you really want to get to know them. And then use your KV Core or whatever database CMA that you have and take notes, because those notes are the most invaluable notes. Why? Because when you call them next time and you remember their daughter's name, guess what? Wow, this person cares about me. Because you do. You care about the information. You're not going to remember everything on your phone call, but for crying out loud, take notes, because those notes make a big difference. I'm telling you right now, those notes make a big difference. Now, attract and engage. So this is one thing. Some people actually, they attract the client. They talk to the client. Their clients show interest, but they're not ready till 6 months to a year. Guess what? That person stopped calling them. Oh, I'll call them 6 months from now. No. Call them every 6 weeks, because at some given moment between now and 6 months from now, they might change their mind and they want to actually buy a house. And you know what? Make a rule that every year you talk to somebody, every person in your contact should have at least 2 or 3 minutes of your time. 2 to 3 minutes of your time. On what? Leaving them a message saying how much you care about them. Not in those exact words, but the feeling that you care about them. You see what I'm saying? So 2 to 3 minutes per person in your database. If you don't have a database, I'm sorry to say, you're going to be a flash in the pan. You're not going to last in this business long term. Why? Because you're actually reacting to the business. You're not in the business to win. You are actually just kind of reacting like, okay, the wind blows me this way, I'm going this way. Okay, the blows me. You can't do this, guys. If you're gonna really be in this business, be serious about it, because you're paying in money into it. I know a lot of you guys are paying some kind of association fee, and that's pretty penny. I mean, it has to come out of somewhere. Okay, you're not in this business of nonprofit. Okay, and trying to figure out where you're gonna make your next groceries. It just doesn't work this way. So you need to really start focusing your energy in making sure that you have a robust, complete, solid, organized database, because that's part of the way you're going to deliver yourself into success in this business. And success is it's like a flywheel effect. There's a book called Good to Great, and he studied a lot of where he was. They started a lot of companies that went from good into a great company. And the difference between the good and the great company and the ones that actually just stuck around or went out of business, the biggest difference is they were inputting their plans and executing it consistently on a regular basis. If you're going to be part-time, then look at your hours and say, this is what I'm going to commit, and stick to it. And if you're going to commit to your hours, then make sure there's a time where you actually study. There's a time you make phone calls. There's a time that you actually plan everything out and make sure that you check and review that you're executing the plan. So you're consistent, right? But essentially, the heart of your business boils down to how good is your database. When I say how good is your database, has every single person in that database been in contact with you? Or you've been in contact with them? Do you have good notes about each and every person in that database? These are the questions you have to ask. That's how you have a good database. Your database is like the heart of your business. Okay? You're going to have a heart attack if you don't take care of your heart and you don't take care of it. And when I say take care of it, you eat healthy, you exercise, all these things. It's the same thing. It's no different. So imagine if your business is like your whole body, and your heart is what makes it move, makes everything happen, right? Your heart. If your heart stops beating, your brain stops moving and everything's dead, right? It's the same thing in the business. If your database is not actually there, then eventually you will get a heart attack because you're not maintaining your heart of your business. And that actually makes a big difference when you're trying to actually have confidence, because if you're not able to sell houses, how can you be confident in actually sitting down to somebody and say, let's sell your house? Oh, but I haven't sold a house in a year. You know, that's the reason why the success is actually a built out process. It's a momentum. Once you start listing properties, you're going to end up listing more properties. It's one of those things that it becomes contagious. People start looking at you like, without you even saying a single word, like, I want to work with this person. It's just the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you actually manage yourself, the way you look and you handle yourself in a situation. I mean, all these things make a difference. It's like dating. If you want to win a girl over, you want to make sure that you're confident about yourself and you're confident about the environment, so the person feels safe and secure. Right? I mean, in that sense. I mean, from a male perspective. But the way I look at it, right? If you're looking at it from the confidence part of it, people will gain more confidence if you have transactions are going on, because you're able to express to them the stories, success stories of what's happening in your, like, if someone came up to you and you want to list a property and say, yeah, so far I've sold 16 properties this year and 100% sale. I've actually done, this particular home was having problems with another agent and I took over and I sold it in like a week. These stories are going to come up, and guess what? It's so much easier to talk about that than I haven't sold a house in a year. Right? No matter how you want to fake it, people can feel it. So it's a very important aspect of our business to actually be able to understand that. So you attract and engage. And when I say engage, make sure you follow up and follow through. Okay? Engage all the way through. I got clients that didn't buy a house from me until 3 years later. I got clients, guess what? I have no competition because I'm in touch with them the whole time. Nobody else is in touch with them. So what? I don't have to compete with the next agent. They don't have to interview any other agents because they know me and I know them, and they like the way I am, and they're not going to go anywhere. They don't need to. But if I'm a commodity and I just met them last week, they're going to be interviewing all these other agents, aren't they? That's the difference. When you attract people, you need to constantly engage with them throughout the whole process, even afterwards. I tell my clients all the time, the beginning of our relationships is when I get you to escrow, to settlement. That's the beginning of our relationship. Why? Because from there on, you're invited to all my events. You're actually part of my family. This is how I treat my clients. I don't like, oh, it's business. Strictly. No. You're in the wrong business. Real estate is actually very personal because that's the biggest purchase any family can make. And they're trusting you with it. And it's a very personal purchase. It's not like I'm buying an investment property. That's a different story. Okay? Buying investment property is like buying stocks. Okay? But buying it for yourself, where you're going to have to move into it with your family, it's very personal. So understand, our business is personal, where other business might not, but this one is. So that's how I establish it. So execute with discipline. If you want to actually be confident about your business, you need to be able to be disciplined enough to be consistent on your execution of everything that you're doing. Because if you're not, your failure rate is going to be much, much higher. You're not going to have a consistent income if you not have a consistent activity to make that income. So what you're doing essentially is you're dreaming about making money in real estate, and you're not actually making money in real estate. And another thing I can actually tell you how important it is, loyalty. When you're loyal to people, opportunities come like there's no tomorrow. The person that I was working with, on my first 4 years, I didn't make anything. I think that's one of the things I was explaining. When I actually joined with a person who actually mentored me in the business, I was with them for almost 7 years. And the only reason why I left is because I was working 60 hours a week. I don't get days off for 2 months. Whereas we have all these days off sometimes in real estate, don't we? No, I have no life. I mean, literally. Back then, you didn't actually have unlimited minutes on your phone. I have like 7,000 minutes on my phone a month. That's how much minutes I had on my phone. And I was actually having, 5 5 appointments on Saturday, 7 appointments on Sunday, like, 20 appointments during the week showing houses. Like there's no tomorrow. The closing 15 transaction requires you to work with 60 to 80 clients in a month. Can you imagine what kind of hours you have? So when people actually, oh wow, it looks so great, you're the number one, blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, you see that, but you don't see the sacrifice that was made when I ended up not being able to pick up my son when he was coming out of the hospital when he was first born. I mean, that's how many things I missed. Because what was my priority back then? My priority was, I need to provide, because that's the way, I've seen how my mom always complained about my dad, that, not enough provision that's being given. And so I'm going to be a provider. I'm going to be different. Guess what? You have to have balance too. And one of the things I can tell you is you have confidence in the fact that you have balance in your life. When I'm talking about this is this. If you have a wife that you don't get to see, or a spouse that you don't get to see at all, might as well have no spouse. What's the point of having a spouse? If you have children that you're trying to raise and you're not there for them, then you're going to have a heck of a time when they become a teenager, because you're not there for them. You see, all these people that you're seeing successful, they're successful one part, but then they fail to actually address the other parts, right? Because there's a certain balance that you need to maintain to be truly successful. And that's actually number one, is your health. This is another thing that I came to realize. When you're working 60 hours a week, you don't have time to eat, you don't have time to sleep, you don't have time to think, all these things, and then you're having all these health problems. And you'll start seeing that, and then you start losing your hair. And it's hard to actually put those hair back actually afterwards. Once you lost it, But that's my point, right? So make sure that whatever you're executing, you're disciplined to do it, okay? Make sure it's balanced, that you have 4 areas of your life that you're actually balancing properly. And when I say 4 areas of your life, it's a very simple way of looking at it. Number 1 is your health, because if you don't have good health, you can't do anything. Do you agree? If you can't walk, your mobility is gone. If you end up with a stroke, you can barely speak. I mean, all these things will pretty much put you in a halt if you don't have good health. So good health is number 1, right? Okay. So exercising or doing something physical, that's actually important. So the second part of it is your mind. Because if you lose yourself, you can't even have anything either, because you can't think, right? I mean, people are actually just so emotionally distraught. I mean, it's hard to actually work like this. What happens in your personal life affects your business, believe it or not. And you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it at some point, that somebody's personal life is affecting the business life, right? But also the other way around. The business life can actually ruin your personal life. So you have to actually make sure you have that balance, right? And then the third part is relational. Your relationships. Your relationships require quality time. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be quality. Always go for quality over quantity when it comes to relationship, because it's about the depth that you go into. It's about the effectiveness of yourself being able to connect. So this is another part that you actually need. And then the last part is the one we're talking about, financial. The more houses you sell, it's a very simple equation, the more money you make. And so if you're selling more than 14, 16 properties a year, you're making 6-figure income. But nowadays, 6-figure income doesn't really even mean anything anymore, because the grocery is actually twice as much. Everything's twice as expensive. Might as well be making like $50,000 20 years ago. That's exactly what the equivalent of 6-figure income. But it looks good. Numbers look good because the government keeps printing money. Well, anyway, so that's my point, right? And then, so I gave you the 4 areas that you guys really need to pay attention to. This actually helps in your confidence, because if you have everything balanced, your emotional ability to be impactful in conversations are going to be much stronger. And it's more impressive in that sense. that you leave an impression on a person that they want to do business with you, not the all stressed out, like, running around with their head chopped off agent. You see, because you got yourself composed. And that actually helps in the confidence of the way you actually do business. Create value. That's another thing. When you're actually in this business, one of the things I can tell you, like I was telling you earlier, value does not necessarily mean money. It also means the emotional part. So something we already discussed. And the last part is exude confidence. This is what the attributes of people that are actually $1 million producers, people that are making over $1 million of income. When I'm saying $1 million producer, by the way, it's not that you sold $1 million worth of houses. $1 million producer for me that you made over $1 million. So, or close to it. Where does your confidence come from? Well, your confidence actually comes from all the way when you're a child. The way your parents brought you up. You have parents that are actually like horrible in terms of how you were raised. Either, their parents that they were never there. You have parents that were actually like abusive. There are parents that actually put you down. There are parents that are actually so disciplined that, like the whole world to you is like you're even scared to step out of the house kind of thing. Your parents, believe it or not, has a huge impact on your confidence. If your parents know, if they only knew, but your parents, by the way, is just like us. Because if you become parents, that's how it is. We become like us, are all imperfect in that sense. That's the reason why I look at that and I say, you know what? At some point, I was able to actually like go through and forgive my parents because I don't want to carry that burden of hate or carry that burden of mistrust that I had with them. And they're getting old too, so I take care of them more than before. But your parents' upbringing makes a huge impact on your confidence. Your siblings, how they treat you. Some of the siblings out there, like especially if they're older siblings, sister or brother, they could be mean. And I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. For the longest time, I actually was doing so well with my business, but then I'm not really confident with everything else. And it's very important for you to actually find confidence in everything that you do. Making sure that you feel good about what's in your skin. You feel good in your skin, kind of thing. Friends and your schoolmates influence that a lot, especially in high school, especially when you're a teenager. Your friends actually have such a big influence in you. And then your teachers. And some teachers nowadays, some of them care, but a lot of them don't care because they have so many students that, they don't really, they just need to put the message out there and that's it. There's not enough interaction sometimes with students because there's like 30, 40 students in one room. And then your environment and communities affect that, your college education. By the way we are actually raised and the way the whole system works is you're from a little kid all the way to you go to high school, all the way to go to college, all the way to finishing college. All that education, it gears toward working for someone else. That's the programming we have. And hence the reason why when you become a independent contractor, self-employed, right? You're thinking, oh, I don't have to go to the office. Oh, I don't have to actually do this. Oh, I don't have to actually make my phone calls. Oh, I don't have to actually set my schedule. Oh, because nobody's forcing me to anymore. Well, guess what? You fell into the trap of that whole programming since you are a little kid till you're an adult that somebody else is in charge of your life. Break off of it. I'm telling you right now, if you want to actually succeed in this business, you got to break off of the program. The program is they will tell you when to work, when not to work. They'll tell you what to do and not to do. They'll give you a schedule. They'll give you a task, and you complete your task. You count your hours, and you're out of here. That's the way school is. Think about it. That's the way when you're a little kid all the way to you're grown, you're programmed this way. Guess what? Oh, that's all I know. Now I'm an independent contractor. Oh, independent contractor. Great. I don't have to actually follow the rules. I don't have to create my own rules. I don't have to actually, set up my business plan. Oh, I don't have to execute that business plan. It's too much work. It's too hard. You know what? But I want someone else to do it. So guess what? You're living off of someone else's dream when you're employed by somebody else. You are actually working for the person to have a great life, not necessarily you. And that is the difference to why you want to actually reprogram your mind. And all these influence that you have from your confidence, it was not actually meant for you to have high confidence in you. It was meant for you to have high confidence to work for someone else. So the point I'm trying to make is start thinking how you want to think if you want to succeed. Start thinking about how you want to think. Because you can think the way you're programmed, and in about 6 months to a year, I guarantee you'll be working somewhere else for someone else, getting paid a salary. Okay? Or you can work for yourself, but be disciplined enough to be able to actually put something together and execute on a daily basis. This is where coaching comes in. What people don't realize how important coaching is. Coaching allows you, for the coach to tell you, hey, these things need to be done. This is what we talked about. Why are you at in it? Why is it not done? So actually getting you not completely off the program, but in a program that you actually still have to be accountable for yourself. Your coach is your conscience. Your coach is the one who's telling you, hey, you know what? If you don't actually continue doing what you need to be doing in the business, you'll be out of business. Hey, hello. That's what a coach does. And also, of course, you have natural abilities, and some people just have the knack of actually being confident about themselves, and they behave that way, and everything works out. Or it's acquired skills, something that they acquired through overtime and experience and life experiences. Or it's a perspective of life, the way you look at the world. Your confidence actually comes from all these factors, right? But the question becomes is, can you deprogram yourself to create an environment where your success is more likely than less likely? Does that make sense? In which circumstance do we need confidence? When we're prospecting, especially when we're prospecting. If you prospect enough, you should be able to actually convert. And the conversion happens is based on the way you prospect. And also the number of prospects that you're actually working with. So there's a quantity and the quality that goes along with it, right? So when you are confident about the things that you talk about, the person more than likely would want to work with you. Because you're not the only agent out there. 1 every 4 doors, you'll find a real estate agent or a relative that's living in that house that's a real estate agent, okay? So you're very in a highly competitive environment. You know how you know you've done a good job? Is when their own sister is a real estate agent and they work with you instead. That's how you know you've actually done a good job of gaining that person's confidence to work with you. Initial client consultation. When you sit down with a client, that's a very impactful. I call this a client expectation meeting. When I sit down with a client, I ask them why they want to buy a house. I ask them, what conditions would you buy a house? How much your monthly payment you want it ideally to be? What are you trying to accomplish when you're purchasing this home? All these questions come up, and if you notice, it's all questions. Why? Because it's about them. You see? The false confidence part is I have to explain about me. No, what I do usually is I have it on a piece of paper, whatever I actually have done or whatever my company has done. Remember, you can always borrow experience, okay? Just remember that. If you don't have much experience, borrow experience. Tie up with somebody who has experience that you can borrow their experience. It's a much easier way to do this. Because that's what I found. When I first 4 years in a career, I sold like 3 houses, like once every year, or if I was lucky. And after the 4th year, I was getting ready to quit. And then I met this guy and I'm like, okay, let me borrow his experience. And sure enough, with borrowing his experience, I took off. I was able to convert all these prospects into clients because I was able to convince them that this person is an expert. When they tell me they're looking for a school district, this guy is an expert. Come in, I'll introduce you to him. But he doesn't have a lot of time. But if you give me the time you're available, I will let him know. That's how it was. And I was actually converting all these people to come in. And we were selling like 80 to 100 houses a year. So that's how you look at it if you're looking at it from the real estate aspect of it. During negotiations, here's the thing. When you have a way for you to close a transaction, people think that just because they're going to get so much for their buyer, it's the best thing for the buyer. Well, not necessarily. What the goal is to find a buyer a home, not write 15 contracts and get denied. Okay? Because getting them a home is also a big objective, especially in a market when there's a shortage of housing. Do you agree? When there's shortage of housing, you need to actually understand that you might even go up on the price. You might even remove appraisal contingency. Does that benefit your buyer? Absolutely not. But the primary objective, once you've written 1, 2, 3, and each time you're getting rejected, is to present your contract for the best possibility of being able to purchase that home if that's what they want. If that's what they want. So I have a general rule when I talk to my clients. The first thing I look for is, what is it like if I was in their shoes? So when I'm having a conversation with you, I'm asking myself, when I'm saying something, what does it feel like? How am I being received from what I'm saying? It's a very important way of thinking, by the way, because sometimes we're just like, we'll just put it out there. I'm going to put it out there. I don't care what people will, believe me, care. Because the more people you lose out there, the less like you're going to sell a house. Okay? So care. Care about how people, some things to me is not worth saying because I know the person is under duress. When people are under duress, they say things that they don't mean. And I actually sit there and I kind of fall back and actually say to myself, okay, I'll take it. I'm okay. I'm a professional. This is what I do. I'm a shock absorber for everybody. I actually call myself Mr. Aspirin. If you have a headache, I mean, you just give it to me and I'll take care of your headache. I mean, this is exactly what we are hired to do, is to actually resolve people's problems. Otherwise, what would you hire an agent for, right? So that's actually another thing that you got to look at. Well, during home inspection and transaction process, home inspections are very tricky. You make sure you partner up with home inspectors that will not scare the gajibers of your client, okay? I mean, you'll learn that a lot in the earlier stages when you happen to hire the wrong one. And next thing you know, like, oh my gosh, I did all that work and this person just killed it in 30 seconds. Like, I mean, you know, but it's not the issue is not even a big deal to begin with. All of a sudden it became such a big deal because you have the wrong vendor. So interview your vendors. Make sure you get them vetted. And also another thing is lenders. That's the reason why my wife and I end up becoming a lender. Because one day I was selling all these houses in 2017, 18. 12 of my transactions didn't go through. That's $120,000. I had to fire 5 loan officers that year. And I looked at my wife, can you get your mortgage license? I can't fire you, and I'll make sure, and I know I'm going to actually straighten this thing up. So ever since then, we never actually lost a single transaction. Because unfortunately, there's people out there who are only thinking about themselves, and it starts getting difficult. They're like, okay, give me the easy one. Can you just give me the easy one? No, we don't need that. Look, you take the easy, you take the hard, you take it all. Because that's the way it works. Because with us, we take loans that people can't even actually handle. And we take it and we say, okay, bring it here. And then we go through it, and if there's problems, we bring it up front. That's the most important part. You don't want to know 2 days before settlement. Like one of the people I'm actually coaching, she just found out 2 days before settlement that they're not settling. I'm like, guess what? That person knew a week before. He already knew a week before, but he's so scared to actually tell you. Why? Because he's not confident that it's not okay to actually bring bad news. Bad news are okay, especially if it's the right time when you bring it up. Okay? Because life doesn't happen perfectly every time, right? So, yeah. So having that acceptance of having bad news is okay. During problem-solving situations, your confidence of your problem-solving abilities People don't believe in themselves enough. Believe me, you can do a lot of things that you never thought you could do when push comes to shove. Our brains are wired for survival. We could do amazing things. Like the most creative things happen, at least in my life, is when I'm actually in the highest stress level, because I need to bring that stress level down somehow, right? So the minute problems come up, well, they're small, take it out, finish it, fix it, move it forward, move it along, constantly moving it along. Because what you don't want is that all those problems become a deterioration of your confidence in the business. And guess what? That will show through all your clients, and some of your clients will fire you like this. And at settlement, when asking for business. By the way, when you show up at settlement, that's the best time because they're the happiest. That's when you get their surveys. That's when you actually like, hey, can you fill this out? Picture, And people don't realize how important it is to actually show up at settlement for that kind of a scenario, because you want them to feel that you are part of the process, and it's the happiest moment because the whole ordeal is over. All the paperwork that needs to be turned in is done. All the stresses of negotiating inspection items or whatever, or being able to actually even win a contract is done. All the stress level is gone. Guess what? Here. That's why you want to be there. You definitely want to be there. I promise you want to be there. So how do we gain our confidence? Well, like I told you guys, physically, you exercise, proper diet, healthy lifestyle, having enough sleep, monitoring and maintaining your health. All these things are important. Because when you are physically healthy and you don't have much issues health-wise, your probability of being able to actually exude confidence in people is much greater because you have energy. And then mentally, your self-education, reading, listening, watching documentaries. I love watching documentaries. I don't even own a TV, actually, in my house. For 20 years, I have never subscribed to television because I don't want to be fed information. I want to look for the information. I want to search for things that's happening in the world. I don't want the world to give it to me the way it's been happening, where things can be tainted, right? So to me, that's very important. Having quality time, having quality sleep, and personal development, attending seminar classes like this. So this is one of the ways for you to actually gain confidence, because whatever we're discussing today, hopefully it's impacting you in some way that you can apply at least 10% of these things that you're learning. And most of these stuff probably you already know, but guess what? It's nice to be reminded, right? And sharpening your skills in real estate. That's another part. I don't know how much more to stress, but the more you know about your business, the more likely you're going to attract more clients. It's just a natural thing. And balancing I mentioned here 5 areas. So physical, mental, emotional, relational, and financial. So mental and physical we combined earlier, like as in 4, right? Emotional is very important as well. So taking periodic vacation and time off. That's actually one of my mottos. You work hard, you play hard. The most income I ever made in this business is when I took the most vacation. Sounds pretty crazy, right? You would think like, oh, the most money you ever make in the business is when you work the hardest. No, it's because you're more focused on the things that's most important. You become more efficient with your time and more effective with people when you know you have deadlines to meet because you have to go on a vacation, right? So usually I take between 9 to 13 weeks of vacations a year, right? When my business is bad, guess what? I'm taking less vacation. And it's like a whole cycle of actually making my business worse because my attitude towards the business sucks. But if I actually took some time off and more time off and I'm able to actually be more relaxed, right? Then your confidence level builds up because you're not stressed. See, stress is actually anti-confidence in that sense, if you think about it, because your stress becomes more anxiety, and more anxiety becomes uncertainty, and more uncertainty in your emotions does not come out very well as somebody who's confident in their business. So taking vacation is very important. I don't know how much more to stress that, but please do take vacations. And it doesn't have to be an expensive one. It just has to be a relaxing one. Does that make sense? Meditation and spiritual connection. To me, that's also another part that makes a big difference. A lot of people that you can see out there that are very successful, they take time to just have a quiet time. And that quiet time allows you to be able to explore how your vision, exactly how you want certain things to be. And it helps. It helps to calm your mind, to reset it. And that's what meditation does, or like some kind of, spiritual connection that you have, whether it's prayer or what you do. For me, it's prayer. So compartmentalization of activities and separation of tasks. This is a very important aspect of how you actually can start to gain confidence. Because when things are happening in certain areas of your life, you have to be able to separate it so then it doesn't affect every part of your life. Because you're not out there for a pity party. You're sitting down with your client and you're telling them your life story. They're not your therapist. Okay? Go to a therapist for that, not your client. Now, your client thinks that you're a therapist sometimes, but that's okay, because you're gaining what? You're gaining their confidence, because you're actually putting emotional deposits into their bank account when you do that, right? But remember, it doesn't go the other way around, because the more you withdraw, the more likely the person will never want to see you. Okay? So how do we maintain our confidence? Repetition of activity, which creates the habit. Success, you've heard this many times. Success is a habit. It's true. I don't know how much more I could actually stress this. Success is a habit. It's a habit of doing things that's on your business plan, because your business plan will get you to your goal. So what you have in a 12 months, 3 years, 5-year goals has to be on a business plan of how you're going to execute it, how many transactions you're going to sell. By the way, by even writing it down, how many transactions I want to sell this year, you're already halfway to fulfilling that goal, because it's written down. It reminds you that you cannot sit around on a daily basis, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Things doesn't get done when you don't have a schedule. Things doesn't get done when you don't have a deadline. And essentially, your goal is your deadline. And whatever it is, if you shoot for a deadline and you go after your deadline and your goals are very high, even if you fail, this is the saying that I actually have, you shoot for the stars, you land in the moon, you're out of this world. It's a huge thing to just even be able to get out of this atmosphere to begin with. You see those rockets, how many times even Elon Musk failed and Jeff Bezos, rockets failed. I mean, it's not easy to get out of this world. But the point I'm trying to make to you is shoot high, aim high, work hard, put your yearly task into a daily habitual routine, and your success is going to come over time. You might think 20 calls is a lot. But if you think about it, 20 calls is really about 2 hours of work, because you're going to have voicemails. I count my voicemail, by the way. Some people are like, oh, connects. Well, we're not telemarketers, okay? We're not going for the connects. You're going for top of mind, remember. So when you leave a personal voicemail, it takes you 20 seconds, but it's very thoughtful or very specific that you actually leave a voicemail on. They feel that you remember them. Now, if they don't call you back the first time, the second time, even the third time, by the fourth time you leave that message and you've been inviting them this whole time, oh my, I'm so sorry, Mark. I haven't been calling you. I know you've been inviting me to all these events, but I got my cousin who's looking to buy a house. Believe it or not, it's a deposit, because you thought about them. You included them in your life when you made that phone call. Very, very important to know. Habit, which creates consistency. Consistency, which produces results over time. Result that produce accomplishments. That's what it is. Because when you don't have results, then you cannot get to the next level, which is your accomplishments. Your accomplishments is the number of transactions you've done or the number of people you have helped. I mean, impact. the impact that you actually do outside of just selling houses, for crying out loud. You have more impact when you have money, believe it or not. You have more impact. Now, happiness, I mean, they always correlate happiness with money. Well, happiness is like, money is like air. Okay? If you don't have air, I guarantee you're not going to be happy. So with lack of money is not a happy moment, but having enough, and you don't really think about money at that point. One thing I can tell you, if you went into this business just for the money, I guarantee you eventually you will fail. Because this business is about helping people. And truly, after doing this for 30 years, I still have the passion of helping people, no matter how difficult people can get sometimes. Believe me, I love helping people. I want to be impactful in their lives. And this is one of the biggest impact you can actually make. And make a good amount of income to go along with it. I mean, I'm sure all of you guys agree, right? So, eliminating excuses. These words that I hear all the time. If only. But this happened. Because this happened. And when one day this will happen. Guys, we don't need any of that, okay? Just keep doing. Set up your business plan. Look, this is not rocket science, I promise you. I mean, you don't need to be Elon Musk actually creating a rocket to actually fly out to space. That's rocket science. As a matter of fact, when I've been watching him closely because I really like the way he thinks, but I know he's missing some parts of his like emotional part that actually he missed from his family or whatever. But when you see him speak about like the dedication to succeed, I mean, he's got it. This guy's got it. I mean, he understands exactly what it takes. So he was looking for an engineer to actually, manage all the engineers to create this rocket. Couldn't find one. Nobody wants to do it because they were thinking like, oh, only NASA can do those kind of things. And NASA hasn't been around for the longest time. So even like the top-rated engineers don't want to take the job, even if you pay them a lot of money. So he's like, okay, well, I have a physics degree and some kind of engineering background, but he's not an aerospace engineer. He's like, okay, I'll have to learn this. So what he did is self-taught. He actually read a lot of books about it and talked to a lot of experts about it, and he became his own rocket engineer. He managed all the engineers, and he became the person that's actually in charge of making that shoot up into the space. 3 times he failed. The 4th time he was successful. SpaceX in the map. You see? Where's the excuses, guys? I mean, I didn't see it from him. And he's one of the most successful people in the world in business. Do you agree? He's got $2 billion companies. I'm talking about billion and billion dollar company. Yes, at some point, or maybe still now, the wealthiest person in the world at some point, right? Not one company, but 2 companies that he's running at the same time. He's got actually 5 companies. But the point I'm trying to make to you guys is, what's our excuse? Right? What's our excuse? Real estate is not rocket science. 5 steps to become confident. Identify the source or your why you're having this lack of confidence. How you know you have a lack of confidence is when you actually have to stutter words sometimes when you're trying to actually express it. Not because you have a stuttering problem, it's because you didn't prepare. If you prepare enough, you're not going to be stuttering anything. Acknowledge the reason behind your lack of confidence. This is very important. Acknowledging the reason behind the lack of confidence, because you need to identify where that's coming from. Because not all of us, I mean, I had the lowest self-esteem when I came out of high school, okay? I mean, I just finished writing my manuscript on my book this morning. I mean, after 4 years, 2020 during COVID, I started writing and then I hated it. And then I like, okay, let me figure out. And so I continued, until now I finally got it done. But the point I'm trying to make to you is I had no confidence actually coming out of high school so when I ended up getting married, I married the person that I would want to be with to begin with, now that I know what I know. So it's kind of, I look back my 20-year-old self, man, if I actually, I had an opportunity to talk to my 20-year-old. So I was like, I would make that decision because self-esteem actually was very low. I mean, I grew up in an environment very hostile, and it was a so I identified those things. By identifying where your lack of confidence comes from, then it's a step forward to figuring out how to improve yourself as a person. So I actually went through a lot of different therapists, trying to actually figure out answers. Couldn't find it. And this one day, this one guy that I was actually like feeling, put it this way, I was feeling suicidal at some point, and I called all these this psychologists and psychiatrists trying to figure out who can give me answers. All of them were saying like, "Oh, come into the office. We need to sit down." Da, da, da. And this one guy says to me, "Oh, that's normal." One guy actually told me it's normal. I was like, "Oh, wow, this is a good one." I want to actually hear why it's normal. Well, guess what? For people that are suicidal out there, believe it or not, it's normal. It's the lack that they've had all their life, and the pain that they go through is so much that the brain is actually telling them, get off of that hot, temperature of whatever that is. It's the same part of that brain. So your brain starts to calculate exactly how to minimize the pain, and the thought of suicide comes in, right? Once you understand where the source of anything, then you get to realize how important it is for you to understand how to solve it. You cannot solve something you don't identify. That's my point, right? So you have to be able to identify the issue. So finally I was able to identify the issue. It's the amount of pain I was. And then I went through the whole understanding of how to relieve the pain and replace it with something happy. So with the confidence, with the lack of confidence, the same thing in that sense. When you lack confidence, it's rooting from somewhere, usually. Whether it's the way you are, like the explanation of your upbringing, the way we were programmed, the how way you follow everything so correctly, kind of thing. But then in the end, basically, it's also the same issue that you're having personally, why you don't feel confident about yourself. Then when you actually figure out the root of the problem, then you can start to resolve it because you identified it. So it's very important to identify the issues that you have in order for you to create a solution for it. So acknowledging the reason behind your lack of confidence, and then eliminating the source. Because sometimes this person that actually is around you is the same person that's keeping you down from being able to feel good about yourself. It's the same person. So if you identify it, you need to administer a solution to it, whatever it is. And the longer that you actually let it linger, the more miserable you get. That's just how it was. Yes. You got to cut the cancer. When you have gangrene, they cut your arm. On the arm that actually has gangrene, of course. That's why they always identify, this is the arm, right? I'm sure they had like mistakes before. That's why they actually put it into the procedure now, right? So build your confidence through positive affirmation also. Positive affirmation. It was there's a YouTube video that went viral about this little girl going up into in front of the mirror in the bathroom. It's like, oh, I love my dad, I love my mom, I love my house, I love my toys, I love my sister. And she went on and on and on. That's affirmation. Because if no one's gonna tell you how good you are, at least for crying out loud, tell yourself this. I never thought I was actually a good-looking guy. So every morning when I wake up, I'm like, oh man, I love you, man. I love you, I was actually like this just because I was like, who's going to tell me these things? If nobody ever told me, and someone else that actually was very close to me, like my ex-partner, ex-wife, actually was actually next to me, and all she did was put me down the whole time. I'm like, no, I'm going to build myself up. There's nothing wrong with this. Because somebody, including yourself, if you want to be loved, you have to learn to love yourself first. When I say first, not necessarily in that priority, but I'm talking about first as in like being able to complete everything that's missing in your thing through personal development. Personal development is a one way for you to show love for yourself, because what you're doing is you're creating understanding on the lack of things that you never got. Because all of us have that. For us to say that, oh, I was raised perfectly. Okay, good. Man, you're delusional. Because nobody is raised perfectly. Nobody. And if nobody's raised perfectly, then whatever the imperfection is that you're actually lacking, you can improve and you can get closer to something that you feel good about. And that's how you gain your confidence in this sense. Does that make sense? So when I was coming out of high school, I felt like I was like just like nobody anything good. I didn't look, I mean, I don't feel good. I don't look good. And, I'm very like insecure about everything. And the first person that comes around in my life, like I'm a little puppy dog. It was like this. But then when I got divorced, it was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. How come there's so many dates? How many? I didn't get better looking as I got older. I just got a better mind as I got older, right? Because I was able to think better. I'm able to respond better. I know how to speak better. I know how to, when someone's trying to insult me, I know how to actually take it back, put it back out there, into the world that's in a nice way. And then the craziest part is like when my wife and I are together, I want to share this with you because it's kind of interesting. The other day when we are disagreeing on something and she started laughing, I was like, what are you laughing for? She's like, normally most people are going to be like yelling and screaming by now. But here you are, you're having like this conversation that's very serious, that I'm actually like presenting my case to her why it's a very serious, but in a very calm and nice and kind manner. But I'm still putting my point across. That's a very serious point. But the point I'm trying to make to you is it's in your tonation of your voice, it's in the calmness of your heart, and it's in the idea that if there is something wrong, speak up. You don't have to yell, because that's another problem people have. If you ever yell at your client, guess what? That client's not going to come back. I promise you. They don't deserve it. They don't need it from you. Shoot, they've probably been yelled at by their parents all their life. They don't want to hear another parent around them. And you would feel the same way. So you got to understand your positive affirmation helps you with the way you are, because you're starting to feel that you don't have to prove yourself out there. The reason why people yell is because they're still immature, that they have something to prove out there. I'm a better driver than that person that just cut me off. Let me show him I'm going to cut him off. I mean, like, really? And then what? What good does that do? So that's the reason why positive affirmation can actually overcome negative feedback or negative things that's actually brewing in your head. I mean, we have our own stuff that we have to deal with, right? But it helps to actually understand that you feed yourself positivity and you will get the results that you're looking for. So, there you go. Build confidence, positive affirmation. Eliminate excuses. That's another thing. The minute that you create an excuse is the minute that you won't do whatever you're supposed to be doing. So if you say, I can't, it's because this is the reason why, then you can't. Even if it looks bleak, I promise you, these things happen over time, the things that you want in your life. Whatever it is you want in your life, if you believe in it enough and you work on it, on yourself enough. By the way, some people think that they can change people. I mean, no, I'm sorry. Let me establish that, okay? People will manipulate you all day long and say, oh, I'm going to change. 22 years later, nothing's changed, So that's my point. Believe me, and some of us went through that same process of understanding that you can't change people, but guess what? You can change you. You can change your way of looking at people. You can change the way you love your enemies instead of hating them. You can change all that. I mean, I have, over the years, I accumulated my own set of enemies, of course. Love me or hate me. I mean, this is who I am. I mean, yeah, all of you guys too. I'm pretty sure you've had some people that don't want to be around you, okay? It's okay. It's okay. I love them anyway. This is the way I look at it. That's my affirmation to them, looking at myself in the mirror and saying, you know what? That person that doesn't like you, I love them anyway. I love them anyway. This is the reason why. Because here's the reason why. There's certain people that you might not like, but if you treat them nice and you're still kind, no matter what, even if they've done wrong with you, one day they come back around, they realize, I've been a horrible person to this person. Let me figure out how to actually get, yes, be kind to them. And I got a referral like 2 weeks ago from a person I have not spoken for 3 years, and that person owed me a couple $1,000 from not paying me for something, right? And then she sent me a referral. First, she sent me a message. I was like, "Oh, so how you doing?" I mean, instead of like, "Hey, where's my couple grand that you owe me?" I mean, most people will say it this way, right? I mean, like if somebody owes you money, like, "Hey, what are you sending me money?" Like, right? I mean, but no. Let's turn this thing around. How is Jane? I'm not giving the names, but how's Jane doing? Your daughter? How's John doing? Your son? How are they doing? Oh, they're doing okay. Great. This is how important it is. Always be kind and be sincere about being kind. Why? Because how else do you want to be? Miserable? You want to carry all that hate in your shoulders? I mean, there's some horrific things that happened in my life, even those people that did those to me. I've learned to actually not only forgive, but also forget that they even done that to me. Because I don't want to actually have to go back there. You go back there, you actually bring back all those stuff, and all these confidence went out the window. Your confidence, part of it is also your positivity, by the way. You have to be positive for you to be confident. Have you ever seen a confident negative person? No, it just doesn't work that way for some reason. I don't know. So eliminate the excuses, because anything that you want in life you can get. And believe me, I've actually seen it in my own life. That anything you want in life you can get. Accept the fact that you will make mistakes and take persistent action to improve yourself or to improve the process, improve the situation. If you're making mistakes and you're not improving the way you approach these things, then you're pretty much insane, because you're expecting, like the results to be different when you're doing the same thing. Okay? So whatever you're doing right now, when you walk out this door, please don't just continue doing what you're doing. Make some changes to improve your business. Okay? Self-confidence is the first requisite to great undertakings. I don't think this is the actor, but I love the quote. Yeah. So this is really the first ingredient for your success, is the fact that you've actually taken action. It's the confidence that you put into it. So you have to have it, especially in that kind of business we're in. You cannot actually expect people to come to you, believe you, or be impactful, so that when you're competing with 4 other agents, that person chooses you over everybody. And I've seen that. I've seen that firsthand in real estate, when sometimes I don't feel confident and I go into the listing appointment because I didn't prepare ahead of time properly, and I don't get the listing. Well, you know what? I deserve it. But it's okay. Let me make adjustments. And that's what you got to do. Okay? Any questions, guys? Hopefully, got a clear picture? Okay.